Hollywood is known as the land of dreams, where stars from all over the world come to make their mark. Among these luminaries are many who trace their roots back to Russia. These celebrities have brought a unique cultural background that enriches their craft, blending their Russian heritage with the glamour and allure of Tinseltown. Today, we'll explore the stories of 17 Hollywood celebrities of Russian descent, delving into their family histories, the hardships their ancestors faced, and how they rose to stardom. 1. Mila Kunis. Born Milena Markovna Kunis in 1983 in Chernivtsi, Ukraine, part of the Soviet Union at the time, Mila Kunis's journey to Hollywood wasn't easy. The daughter of a mechanical engineer and a physics teacher, her family was Jewish, and they faced significant anti-Semitism in the Soviet Union. Hoping for a better life, they fled to the United States in 1991 when Mila was just 7 years old. The family arrived in Los Angeles with only $250 to their name. Her parents had to start over from scratch. Her father took a job as a cab driver, and her mother worked in a pharmacy. Mila herself didn't speak any English when she arrived in the US, and she recalls being completely overwhelmed on her first day of school, not understanding a single word. However, her resilience shone through. Within a year, she was speaking English fluently. At age 9, Mila was enrolled in acting classes after school, which opened the door to her future career. She started landing small roles in commercials, and by the time she was 14, she was cast as Jackie Burkhart on the hit sitcom That 70s Show. The show made her a household name, but it was her later film roles, including Black Swan, Friends with Benefits, and Bad Moms, that cemented her status as a leading lady in Hollywood. Mila often talks about how her family's experience as immigrants shaped her as an actress and a person. She is fluent in Russian and has spoken about how her heritage influences her work ethic and dedication. Her story is one of resilience and overcoming adversity, both personally and professionally. 2. Leonardo DiCaprio. Leonardo DiCaprio's connection to Russia may not be widely known, but it's a central part of his family history. His maternal grandmother, Helene Indenbergen, was born Yelena Smirnova in Russia. Yelena's family fled the Bolshevik Revolution and eventually settled in Germany, where Helene was raised before moving to the United States. DiCaprio often referred to his grandmother as his Oma and credited her with being one of his greatest influences. Growing up in Los Angeles, DiCaprio was raised by a single mother, but the influence of his grandmother's Russian heritage was strong in his life. He spent much of his childhood with her, and she introduced him to stories about their family's roots and the struggles they faced. During the Russian Revolution, it was her storytelling and the strength she showed in overcoming personal hardship that inspired DiCaprio's humanitarian efforts later in life. 3. Mila Jovovich. Mila Jovovich, star of the Resident Evil franchise and The Fifth Element, was born in Kiev, Ukraine in 1975 to a Russian mother and Serbian father. Her mother, Galina Loganova, was a well-known Russian actress, and her father, Bogdan Jovovich, was a doctor. The family emigrated to the United States when Mila was just 5 years old, leaving behind a Soviet Union still grappling with the effects of political and social unrest. The family's early days in the US were tough, with her mother working as a housekeeper to make ends meet while her father struggled to find work in his field. However, her mother's passion for acting remained strong, and she encouraged Mila to pursue the arts. Jovovich began modeling at age 12, quickly rising through the ranks to become one of the top models of the 1990s. Despite her early success in modeling, Mila transitioned to acting, where she found her true calling. Her breakout role came in Luc Besson's The Fifth Element, where she played Lilu, a genetically engineered woman with superhuman abilities. The role showcased her physicality and dramatic range, and it cemented her as an action star. She would go on to star in the Resident Evil franchise, which became a global phenomenon. Throughout her career, Mila has remained proud of her Russian roots, often speaking about her mother's influence on her acting and her upbringing. Fluent in Russian, Mila frequently returns to her native Ukraine and Russia, where she engages with her fans and supports humanitarian causes in the region. 4. Winona Ryder. Born Winona Laura Horowitz in 1971 in Minnesota, Winona Ryder's Russian heritage comes from her father's side. Her paternal grandparents, who were Jewish immigrants from Russia and Romania, fled Eastern Europe due to the violent pogroms targeting Jewish communities. The Horowitz family's story is one of perseverance, and it had a profound impact on Winona's upbringing and identity. Growing up in a tight-knit intellectual family, Ryder was surrounded by literature, art, and political activism. Her father was a writer and publisher, and her godfather was renowned counterculture icon Timothy Leary. The family's Russian-Jewish heritage, combined with their countercultural lifestyle, influenced Winona's approach to acting and life. Ryder's breakout came in the 1980s with roles in Beetlejuice and Heathers. She quickly became one of the most sought-after actresses of her generation, known for playing quirky, offbeat characters with depth and vulnerability. Some of her most iconic roles came in films like Edward Scissorhands, Girl, Interrupted, and Reality Bites. Throughout her career, Winona has remained proud of her Russian-Jewish heritage. In interviews, she often speaks about the importance of her family's immigrant story and how it has shaped her sense of identity and purpose. She has also been vocal about anti-Semitism and the struggles her ancestors faced, using her platform to advocate for social justice. 5. Anton Yelchin. Anton Yelchin, known for his standout role as Pavel Chekhov in the Star Trek franchise, was born in Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, in 1989 to a family of elite figure skaters. His parents, Viktor and Irina Yelchin, were celebrated athletes in Russia, but due to the political climate and anti-Semitism, they sought asylum in the United States when Anton was just 6 months old. The Yelchin family's story is one of survival and hope. Leaving behind their careers in homeland, Viktor and Irina began their lives anew in Los Angeles, where they focused on raising Anton in a supportive environment. They enrolled him in acting classes when he was young, and by age 9, Anton had begun working in television and film. Anton's film career took off in the early 2000s with roles in films like Alpha Dog and Charlie Bartlett, but it was his portrayal of Chekhov in the rebooted Star Trek films that made him a household name. Fluent in Russian, Yelchin often spoke about his family's experiences and how their struggles shaped his perspective on life. Tragically, Anton's life was cut short in 2016 due to a freak accident at his home. His sudden death shocked the world, but his legacy endures through his work and the foundation set up in his name. His parents have continued to honor his memory by sharing his story and supporting young artists, much like how they nurtured Anton's own talents. His love for his Russian roots and his ability to bridge two worlds, Hollywood and Russia, made him a beloved figure in the industry. 6. Olga Kurylenko. Olga Kurylenko, the Ukrainian-born actress and model, was born in Berdyansk in 1979 to a Ukrainian mother and a Russian father. Her parents separated when she was young, and she was raised by her mother in poverty-stricken conditions in the wake of the Soviet Union's collapse. Kurylenko transitioned to acting in the early 2000s, landing roles in French cinema before making her Hollywood debut as the Bond girl in Quantum of Solace alongside Daniel Craig. Her striking beauty and talent made her a standout, and she went on to star in films like Oblivion with Tom Cruise and The November Man. Though she has achieved global fame, Kurylenko is deeply proud of her Russian and Ukrainian roots. She often shares stories of her difficult upbringing, crediting her mother's strength and determination for her success. Olga remains connected to her heritage, frequently visiting both Russia and Ukraine and engaging with fans from both countries. 7. Natalie Portman. Born Natalie Hirschlag in Jerusalem in 1981, Natalie Portman's Russian heritage comes from her paternal side. Her grandfather, Arthur Stevens, emigrated from Russia to the United States before World War II, fleeing anti-Semitism and political turmoil. Her father, Avner Hirschlag, was raised in Israel, and Natalie's family history is a complex blend of Russian, Polish, and Israeli identities. Portman's Russian-Jewish roots have been a significant influence throughout her life, shaping her values and career choices. From a young age, she was surrounded by a family that emphasized education and cultural understanding, and these values translated into her work as an actress and activist. Portman's breakout role came at the age of 12 when she starred in Luc Besson's Léon, The Professional. Since then, she has built a remarkable career with iconic roles in Star Wars, Black Swan, for which she won an Academy Award, and V for Vendetta. Her ability to portray strong, complex characters is often tied to her own heritage, which gives her a unique understanding of struggle, survival, and resilience. Fluent in Hebrew and connected to her Jewish heritage, Portman has spoken about the importance of her Russian roots as part of her identity. Her global perspective as an Israeli-American with Russian ancestry informs her humanitarian work, including her advocacy for women's rights and her directorial debut with A Tale of Love and Darkness, a film about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. 8. Lév Schreiber. Known for his intense roles in Ray Donovan in X-Men Origins, Wolverine has deep Russian Jewish roots that have shaped his life and career. Schreiber's father, Tel Schreiber, was a stage actor with Russian Jewish ancestry, while his mother, Heather Milgram, was an artist and activist who raised him with an appreciation for his cultural heritage. Lév grew up in a bohemian household in New York City, surrounded by intellectuals, artists, and political activists. His mother exposed him to Russian literature and culture from a young age, which helped shape his intellectual curiosity and passion for storytelling. Schreiber's performances often reflect this deep introspection, a hallmark of Russian artistic tradition. His Russian heritage has played a significant role in his career, especially in his approach to acting. Schreiber's dedication to his craft, particularly in theater, where he has performed in numerous Shakespearean productions, reflects the influence of Russian theater greats like Konstantin and Stanislavski. His portrayal of characters is often infused with a sense of depth and complexity that echoes the struggles of his Russian ancestors. In addition to his acting career, Schreiber is a writer and director, continuing the tradition of intellectual and cultural exploration that his Russian Jewish heritage has instilled in him. 9. Helen Mirren. Helen Mirren, born Ilyana Lydia Mironov in London in 1945, comes from Russian aristocracy on her father's side. Her grandfather, Pyotr Mironov, was a member of the Russian nobility and an officer in the Imperial Russian Army. After the Russian Revolution of 1917, the family fled to the United Kingdom, where they anglicized their name to Mirren and began anew. Growing up in a household that held on to its Russian traditions, Mirren was instilled with a strong sense of discipline and pride in her heritage. Though she grew up in England, she never forgot her family's Russian roots. Her father, Vasily Mironov, was a civil servant, and her mother, a working-class woman from London, provided her with a balanced view of the world, blending her Russian aristocratic heritage with her British upbringing. Mirren's career in acting spans decades, with standout roles in The Queen, Gosford Park, and Prime Suspect. She has won numerous awards, including an Academy Award for her portrayal of Queen Elizabeth II. Despite her British upbringing, Mirren's Russian heritage remains an integral part of her identity, and she often speaks of the pride she feels in her family's history. She has also been involved in several Russian cultural events and has visited Russia many times, where she is celebrated as a cultural icon. 10. Michael Chekhov. Born in 1891, was the nephew of the famous Russian playwright Anton Chekhov. He became one of the most influential actors and directors of the 20th century, renowned for his mastery of the Stanislavski system of acting. However, Chekhov eventually developed his own acting technique, known as the Chekhov technique, which emphasized imagination and the actor's psychological connection to their characters. Chekhov fled the Soviet Union in the early 1920s, seeking artistic freedom in the West. He eventually settled in the United States, where he continued to act and teach. In Hollywood, he worked with some of the greatest stars of the time, including Marilyn Monroe, Gregory Peck, and Clint Eastwood, helping them develop their craft using his unique acting methods. Chekhov's influence on Hollywood is profound. His teachings are still used by many actors today, and his Russian heritage, steeped in the traditions of Stanislavski and the Moscow Art Theater, remains a cornerstone of modern acting techniques. His contributions to both Russian and American theater make him a pivotal figure in the history of cinema. 11. Yul Briner. Yul Briner, born in 1920 in Vladivostok, Russia, was one of Hollywood's most enigmatic and charismatic stars. Known for his iconic role as the King of Siam in The King and I, Briner's exotic looks and deep, resonant voice set him apart in Hollywood, where he enjoyed a career spanning 5 decades. Briner's mother was Russian, and his father was of Swiss and Mongolian descent. His family fled Russia during the Bolshevik Revolution, eventually settling in China and later Paris. Briner's early years were spent in a mix of cultural influences, but his Russian heritage was always central to his identity. In the 1940s, Briner moved to the United States, where he worked as a radio announcer and stage actor before making his film debut. His portrayal of the King and the King and Eye on Broadway made him a star, and he reprised the role in the film adaptation, winning an Academy Award for Best Actor. Throughout his life, Briner embraced his Russian roots. Fluent in several languages, including Russian, he often spoke of his family's journey and the impact it had on his worldview. His unique background made him a versatile actor, capable of playing roles that spanned cultures and eras. 12. Kirk Douglas. Born Ishur Danilowitz in 1916 in New York, was the son of Jewish immigrants from Russia. His parents, Brina and Herschel, fled the anti-Semitic pogroms in their homeland, seeking a better life in the United States. Despite their new life in America, the Danilowitz family struggled with poverty, and young Ishur worked odd jobs to help support the family. Douglas's Russian-Jewish heritage played a significant role in shaping his identity. He grew up in a household that spoke Yiddish, and he was deeply aware of the persecution his ancestors faced in Russia. This sense of struggle and survival influenced his approach to acting, where he became known for playing tough, resilient characters in films like Spartacus and Passive Glory. Douglas's career spanned more than 6 decades, and he became one of the last surviving stars of Hollywood's golden age. He often spoke about his family's immigrant journey and credited his parents' resilience for inspiring him to pursue his dreams. Despite his fame, Douglas remained connected to his roots, frequently visiting Jewish communities around the world and advocating for causes related to Jewish heritage and anti-Semitism. 13. Sophie Turner. Best known for her role as Sansa Stark in HBO's Game of Thrones, Sophie Turner has some surprising Russian heritage. Born in 1996 in Northampton, England, Turner's maternal great-grandparents were of Russian descent. Her family fled the Soviet Union during the early 20th century, escaping political persecution. Though Turner's Russian roots are not widely discussed, they have played a role in shaping her sense of identity. Growing up in England, she was raised with stories of her family's survival and the difficulties they faced in fleeing their homeland. These stories influenced Turner's understanding of struggle and resilience, qualities she has brought to her performances, especially as Sansa Stark, a character who endures immense hardship but ultimately rises to power. Turner's acting career began at a young age, and her role in Game of Thrones quickly made her a global star. In addition to her acting, Turner is also an advocate for mental health awareness and has spoken about the importance of understanding one's heritage and background in shaping personal identity. While her Russian roots may not be front and center in her public persona, they remain an important part of her family history. 14. David Duchovny. Best known for his roles in The X-Files and Californication, has Russian-Jewish ancestry on his father's side. His paternal grandparents emigrated from Ukraine and Russia in the early 20th century, fleeing pogroms and political instability. Growing up in a multicultural household in New York City, Duchovny was exposed to a blend of Jewish, Russian, and American cultures. His father, Amram Duchovny, was a writer and publicist, while his mother, Margaret, was a school teacher. Duchovny's family emphasized the importance of education, and he pursued an academic path before turning to acting. After earning degrees from Princeton and Yale, Duchovny transitioned to Hollywood, where he found success with The X-Files, a show that became a cultural phenomenon. His portrayal of FBI agent Fox Mulder, who investigates paranormal phenomena, made him a household name. Duchovny has spoken about the influence of his Russian-Jewish heritage on his life and work. He often reflects on his family's immigrant journey and the impact it has had on his perspective as an actor and writer. His ability to navigate complex characters with a blend of intellect and vulnerability can be traced back to his rich cultural background. 15. Steven Seagull. Action star Steven Seagull, famous for films like Under Siege and Hard to Kill, has Russian roots through his paternal grandparents, who were Russian Jewish immigrants. Seagull was born in Michigan in 1952 and grew up in a multicultural household that blended Russian, Jewish, and American traditions. Seagull's Russian heritage became more prominent later in his life. In 2016, he was granted Russian citizenship by President Vladimir Putin, and he has since become a vocal supporter of Russia and its policies. Seagull frequently travels to Russia, where he is involved in both political and cultural events, blending his Hollywood career with his interest in martial arts and Russian culture. Though Seagull's career in Hollywood has been marked by his tough guy roles, his Russian roots remain an important part of his personal identity. His embrace of Russian culture has influenced his worldview and his approach to both acting and martial arts. 16. Sasha Lus. Model and actress Sasha Lus was born in Magadan, Russia in 1992. Known for her work in high fashion and her starring role in the action film Anna, Lus has become a rising star in both the modeling and acting worlds. Lus grew up in a family that emphasized Russian culture, and despite her international career, she often speaks about the importance of her Russian heritage in shaping her identity and artistic vision. Fluent in Russian, Lus has maintained a strong connection to her homeland, frequently visiting and collaborating with Russian artists and filmmakers. Her breakthrough role in Anna, directed by Luc Besson, showcased her physicality and presence as an actress, drawing comparisons to other iconic Russian stars like Mila Jovovich. Lus's blend of beauty, talent, and cultural pride makes her one of the most promising new faces in Hollywood. 17. Yulia Snegir. Yulia Snegir, a Russian actress known for her role in A Good Day to Die Hard, was born in Donskoy, Russia in 1983. Snegir's rise to fame in both Russian and Hollywood films has made her a well-known figure, celebrated for her beauty and talent. Yulia initially pursued a career in academia, studying English literature at the Moscow State Pedagogical University. However, after being scouted as a model, she shifted her focus to acting. Her breakout role in the Russian film The Inhabited Island brought her to the attention of international audiences, leading to her casting in Hollywood projects. Despite her success in the West, Snegir remains deeply connected to her Russian roots. She often returns to Russia to work on film projects and engage with her fans. Her ability to navigate both Hollywood and Russian cinema has made her a versatile and celebrated actress. From Mila Kunis to Yulia Snegir, these 17 stars remind us that Hollywood is a place where different cultures and stories collide. Their Russian roots have not only shaped who they are, but have added richness to their work and their lives. Their stories of perseverance, talent, and pride remind us of the incredible diversity that lies behind the Hollywood spotlight.